If Nigeria were divided today, the Igbo would not awaken to chaos or confusion, but to a crossroads where history and destiny converge, and where resilience, long underestimated, would finally have a stage to reveal its full capacity. Because while many imagine that separation breeds weakness, the story of the Igbo shows that autonomy often becomes a catalyst for innovation, enterprise, and cultural revival. And if we trace their history from the decentralized republican systems of Nnewi and Arochukwu to the communal apprenticeship economies, to the post-war reconstruction that saw cities rise from ruin, we begin to understand that the Igbo have always possessed the internal architecture necessary for self-governance, for any society that rebuilds after devastation, that educates its children despite marginalization, that thrives without depending on handouts, has already rehearsed the most difficult parts of independence. Should division occur today, the first unbelievable transformation would be psychological. The shift from seeking validation within a federal structure to defining value on their own terms, and that shift alone would unleash a surge of confidence, innovation, and unity. For identity uncontested becomes purpose clarified, and purpose clarified becomes progress accelerated. Imagine a nation where education is prioritized not as a privilege, but as a cultural obligation. Imagine a country where entrepreneurship is not hindered by bureaucracy, but encouraged by communal systems already proven successful. Imagine a state whose diaspora, stretching across the Americas, Europe, and Africa, does not merely send remittances, but investments, technology, knowledge, and networks, building tech hubs, research centers, manufacturing districts, and export zones. For the Igbo diaspora is not scattered in weakness, but positioned in strength, occupying seats in global academia, business, medicine, engineering, and politics. If Nigeria divided today, the world would be shocked not because the Igbo collapse, but because they ascend faster than expected, leveraging what they already have: human capital, entrepreneurial culture, communal accountability, shared language, and an economic spirit that thrives even under constraint. Consider their markets: Aba, Onitsha, Nnewi, industrial hubs built not by federal intervention, but by private initiative. Imagine those hubs scaled with national autonomy, international trade treaties, seaports optimized, and energy policies aligned with industrial needs, and you begin to see a future where manufacturing becomes export-driven, where local industries compete globally, and where the world's perception of African development shifts, because a people long underestimated suddenly demonstrate what economic freedom looks like. And it is not only economics that would astonish observers. Culture too would experience renaissance, for language suppressed becomes language celebrated, heritage diluted becomes heritage revived, and traditions overshadowed become traditions embraced. Festivals, literature, film, music, fashion, and cuisine would gain global platforms, shaping narratives rather than merely defending them. And yes, the initial years would not be without difficulty. Nation building requires resources, infrastructure, diplomacy, and security, but difficulty is not defeat, it is preparation. The Igbo have known hardship before in colonization, in civil war, and in political exclusion. What others call threats, they have historically turned into training. What others fear, they have learned to face. In an independent context, institutions could be designed not to mimic failed models, but to reflect indigenous philosophies, decentralized governance echoing village assemblies, economic structures modeled after apprenticeship networks, conflict resolution rooted in communal consensus rather than imposed decrees. Imagine a justice system less corrupt because accountability is cultural. Imagine healthcare strengthened by diaspora doctors returning with experience and partnerships. Imagine agriculture modernized using both traditional knowledge and contemporary science, yam, cassava, palm oil, rice, not merely for subsistence, but for export. Skeptics would ask, can a people so long marginalized truly flourish alone? And history answers they already have again and again. After the Civil War, with bank accounts wiped and properties seized, they rebuilt. After discrimination, they excelled. After exclusion, they innovated. So if division happened today, the world would not witness collapse but awakening. Yet independence is not only opportunity, it is responsibility. Independence means confronting internal weaknesses, tribal distrust, political fragmentation, and the dangers of elite capture. But a society aware of these challenges stands better prepared to address them. And the Igbo, being fiercely vocal and participatory, would likely insist on transparent leadership, merit-based governance, and citizen accountability, because autonomy without reform is merely a change of flag, not a change of future. The global community too would react. Investors seeking emerging markets would turn their eyes toward a region abundant in minerals, fertile land, seaports, and skilled labor. West Africa's geopolitical balance would shift as a new nation enters diplomacy with confidence rooted not in empty nationalism, but in demonstrated capability. And many would ask, how did they rise so fast? The answer lies not in miracles, but in mindset. The Igbo believe in self. They believe wealth should be created rather than waited for. They believe education is a ladder out of limitation. They believe that failure is not final but formative. And those beliefs, institutionalized, would become national ideology. But perhaps the most unbelievable change would be generational children growing up without inherited insecurity or imposed inferiority, youth envisioning leadership not as impossibility, but as duty, and elders witnessing not suppression, but recognition of contributions. A divided Nigeria would force clarity. Unity without equality is merely silence, but independence with purpose is progress. And progress would not be driven by revenge or resentment, but by ambition and vision. The Igbo have no interest in isolation. They would seek partnerships, regional, continental, and global. They would join the African Union, engage ECOWAS, negotiate trade with Europe and Asia, collaborate on technology and finance, and participate in peacekeeping, for independence does not mean withdrawal. It means participation from a position of respect. And what of infrastructure, roads, bridges, energy? With autonomy, decisions could prioritize industrial regions, not political zones. Power generation could focus on gas, solar, and hydro abundant in the region. Transportation could emphasize trade corridors rather than political appeasement. And what of national identity? Independence would allow the Igbo to teach their children history without censorship, to celebrate achievements without suspicion, to honor ancestors without apology. In such a scenario, the world's reaction would reveal much some would admire, others envy, and a few resist. For a thriving, independent Igbo state would challenge stereotypes, disrupt narratives, and show that African development is not fantasy but possibility. And yes, danger remains. Independence may ignite hostility from leaders who fear the example of success. It may attract interference from external powers seeking influence. It may struggle with internal divisions if unity is not prioritized. But the Igbo have navigated such challenges before, and their history teaches that unity is strongest when voluntarily chosen, not coerced. And thus the unbelievable outcome of division is not disintegration, but demonstration that a people long told they cannot discover they always could, that a region long marginalized becomes central, that a culture long dismissed becomes influential. Yet independence is not the only possible future. Unity within Nigeria is possible too, but only if built on fairness, equality, and justice. However, if division came today, the Igbo would not enter darkness, they would enter dawn. And dawn is never calm. It is filled with uncertainty, but also with possibility. The lesson here is not merely political, it is motivational. Whether within Nigeria or beyond, the Igbo possess the tools of transformation, education as weapon, enterprise as engine, culture as compass, resilience as shield. Their future is not defined by borders, but by belief, not limited by politics, but expanded by potential. And so the world might watch in disbelief, expecting collapse, and instead witness construction, expecting silence, and instead hearing vision, expecting fragmentation, and instead seeing formation. And the message to every Igbo listening is this: your destiny is not in the hands of nations, but in the strength of your spirit. Your future is not determined by the lines on a map, but by the fire in your mind. And whether divided or united, your greatness remains inevitable when guided by discipline, unity, courage, and purpose. The unbelievable thing is not what would happen if Nigeria divided. The unbelievable thing is what you are capable of, division or not. For the world has seen you survive. Now it waits to see you sow. Division doesn't define destiny, preparation does, because the fate of any people is not sealed by the borders that enclose them, but by the strength of the vision that fuels them. And the Igbo are a testament to this truth, having shown throughout history that limitation only becomes permanent when accepted, and that disadvantage becomes destiny only when internal preparation is absent. For borders can be redrawn, governments can change, alliances can shift. But the mind that is trained, the culture that is organized, and the people who are disciplined remain powerful regardless of geography. The conversation around division often distracts from the true engine of progress: preparation. A nation can be vast, but if its people are idle, it will remain stagnant. A country can be rich in natural resources, but if its citizens lack skill and vision, those resources will serve others more than themselves. Conversely, a society with limited land can build industries. A community with limited political power can cultivate influence, and a people with restricted access can create their own economies. The Igbo have demonstrated this repeatedly, not just in the aftermath of war or in the face of marginalization, but in the ordinary rhythms of daily life, where education is not a luxury, but a lifeline, where entrepreneurship is not a risk, but a cultural instinct, and where unity, even when strained, remains a survival strategy. If Nigeria remains united, the Igbo will continue leveraging the advantages of a vast market and diverse population to expand their influence. If Nigeria divides, the Igbo will redirect their skills inward to consolidate, build autonomy, and accelerate development. In both scenarios, preparation, not politics, determines prosperity. It is not the drawing of a border that decides who thrives, but the building of capacity before the border is drawn. And the Igbo have been preparing for generations through apprenticeship systems that turn ordinary youths into business leaders, through diaspora networks that convert distance into opportunity, and through cultural values that place dignity on self-reliance rather than dependence. This is why external forces fear their potential, not because division would weaken the federation, but because preparation has already given the Igbo the tools to stand, negotiate, and excel, whether inside or outside that federation. A border can restrict movement, but it cannot restrict imagination. A constitution can define a state, but it cannot define ambition. A political map can change, but it cannot erase cultural memory, communal resilience, or learned expertise. Preparation is the difference between collapse and continuity, between confusion and transition, between chaos and creativity. If division came today, the Igbo who have studied, traded, traveled, built, rebuilt, and adapted would not begin from zero. They would begin from a place of accumulated skill, networks, and knowledge. Their businesses would not end, they would evolve. Their education would not be wasted, it would be weaponized. Their diaspora would not be isolated, it would be activated. That is why destiny rests not in the drama of separation, but in the discipline of preparation. The world has seen wealthy nations collapse because their people were unprepared, and small nations thrive because their people were ready. Preparation allows a people to absorb shock, pivot quickly, build institutions, attract investment, negotiate partnerships, and resist manipulation. Preparation transforms division from disaster into opportunity, and unity from convenience into collaboration. Whether Nigeria divides or stays whole, the Igbo who prepare will rise, because destiny does not ask what happened to your borders, it asks what you did with your mind. It does not care what you inherited, it cares what you built. It does not measure the size of your land, it measures the strength of your ideas. In the end, borders only matter to those who have nothing beyond them. Those who are prepared carry their destiny wherever they go, across states, across nations, across continents. And the Igbo, through resilience, education, enterprise, and unity, have already shown the world that their preparation is not hypothetical, but historical. They have rehearsed autonomy in marketplaces, practiced democracy in village assemblies, built industries without federal support, and turned adversity into university. That preparation, not division, is the true architect of their future. Independence is not isolation, it is opportunity, because true autonomy in the modern world is not achieved by withdrawing from global partnerships, shutting borders, or abandoning cooperation, but by creating the freedom to negotiate on your own terms, to shape your own policies, and to define your own identity without dilution or imposed compromise. And for the Igbo, whose history reflects a pattern of resilience, adaptability, and outward-looking ambition, independence would not resemble a lonely island, but a launchpad into greater regional and international relevance. If Nigeria were divided today, independence would not mean turning inward, cutting ties, or severing relationships. Rather, it would mean transforming existing ties into strategic partnerships rather than dependency, because the Igbo have never been afraid of the world. They have traded with it, migrated into it, learned from it, and transformed within it. Diaspora communities scattered across the Americas, Europe, and Africa would become more than emotional connections. They would become economic bridges, transferring technology, investment, knowledge, and networks. Independence would unlock the ability to negotiate trade deals that reflect internal strengths such as manufacturing, energy, and agriculture, without waiting for federal approval or navigating bureaucratic politics. It would allow the establishment of seaports and airports optimized for commerce, bringing imports and exports under policies designed to stimulate industry rather than restrict growth. And while skeptics may argue that independence isolates a region, history shows that many of the world's most successful nations are not the largest in land mass, but the most strategic in mindset, and the Igbo have long demonstrated a mindset that values enterprise, innovation, and global engagement. Independence would create a political environment where leadership is chosen for competence, not merely loyalty, where governance reflects cultural values of accountability and community consultation, and where policies align with the ambitions of the people rather than the convenience of the ruling elite. Education would not be seen as a cost, but as the foundation of national strength, enabling a generation of engineers, scientists, doctors, and entrepreneurs who are not just employable, but irreplaceable. Healthcare, infrastructure, and energy policies could be tailored to local needs rather than dictated by distant interests. And because independence removes the expectation of federal support, it sharpens the urgency of self-reliance, which the Igbo already practice through apprenticeship systems that turn youths into business owners, and through communal investments that build markets and industries with minimal government assistance. In an independent state, these systems could be scaled, formalized, and linked to global supply chains, transforming informal enterprise into recognized economic power. Furthermore, independence does not mean abandoning cultural diversity. It means celebrating it with confidence, projecting indigenous language, art, literature, music, and traditions onto the world stage without having to dilute them for national neutrality. Tourism would become more than sightseeing. It would become cultural diplomacy. International relations would not be limited by alignment to inherited policies. They would be shaped by national interest and regional solidarity. Independence would also inspire psychological transformation, the shift from waiting for inclusion to asserting participation, from defending rights to exercising agency, from reacting to events to designing them. And this psychological shift is not superficial. It fuels productivity, strengthens unity, and attracts respect. Investors prefer stability, clarity, and ambition. Independence provides a chance to craft all three. Of course, independence comes with challenges: security, resource management, and political cohesion. But these challenges are not evidence of isolation. They are steps toward maturity. And the Igbo, having experienced hardship in many forms, colonialism, civil conflict, and political marginalization, have already developed the resilience needed to face such challenges without breaking. Independence is opportunity because it demands growth, forces innovation, and rewards initiative. It removes excuses and replaces them with responsibility. It transforms a people from subjects into stakeholders. And for the Igbo, whose entrepreneurial culture has turned adversity into advantage time and again, independence is not a void to fear, but a horizon to pursue. In a world where small nations like Singapore, Rwanda, and Botswana have leveraged autonomy into prosperity, independence for a prepared and resilient people like the Igbo would not result in isolation, but integration, strategic, confident, and purposeful into the global economy. The future belongs not to those who cling to the safety of old arrangements, but to those who dare to shape new realities, and independence would give the Igbo the platform, the freedom, and the legitimacy to shape theirs. The Igbo strength has always been self-reliance, because long before modern politics, long before foreign systems attempted to redraw identities or dictate development, the Igbo had already built a culture where survival was not dependent on kings or empires, but on the ingenuity of the ordinary person, the collaboration of the community, and the belief that success is earned, not given. When the world tried to silence them, they created markets. When governments withheld support, they built industries. When systems marginalized them, they educated their children, not because they sought approval, but because they understood that dignity comes from what you build with your own hands. This spirit did not emerge overnight. It is rooted in centuries of communal systems where every man and woman was seen as a potential contributor, where trade was not a privilege reserved for elites, but a pathway available to anyone willing to learn. The apprenticeship system, imitated globally and studied by economists, shows how deeply self-reliance is woven into the fabric of Igbo identity. A young person learns under a master not merely to become an employee, but to eventually own a business, create wealth, and mentor others, turning self-reliance into a generational cycle rather than an individual achievement. It is this mindset that enabled the Igbo to rebuild after the Civil War, despite confiscated wealth and political disadvantage. It is this mindset that allowed cities like Aba, Onitsha, and Nnewi to grow not because they were funded by federal projects, but because they were fueled by communal determination. The power of self-reliance is not arrogance. It is empowerment. It says, if the world will not build for us, we will build for ourselves. If opportunity is denied, we will create it. If we are told to wait, we will move. This self-driven spirit explains why the Igbo diaspora thrives across continents, not because they always find systems designed for them, but because they adapt, innovate, and excel even where the environment is difficult. They enter new countries with little more than ambition and leave footprints in science, business, technology, medicine, and academia. That global adaptability is not accidental. It is the natural result of a cultural upbringing that teaches resilience as a normal expectation, not an extraordinary trait. When you come from a people who have learned to survive without dependence, the world cannot easily break you. And that is why self-reliance is more than an economic principle. It is a psychological fortress. It forms confidence in adversity, patience in struggle, and creativity in scarcity. When the Igbo face obstacles, they view them not as walls, but as puzzles, solvable, navigable, conquerable. This mindset has made them both admired and misunderstood. Admired by those who recognize their work ethic and innovation, misunderstood by those who interpret independence as pride or threat. But true self-reliance is not hostility, it is humility paired with discipline. It does not say, we need no one. It says, we refuse to be helpless. It welcomes collaboration but rejects dependency. It pursues partnerships but resists subservience. And this quality is what makes the Igbo not only survivors, but builders. They have constructed micro-economies where governments failed. They have produced intellectuals where schools were underfunded. They have maintained cultural pride where assimilation was encouraged. And they have done this without waiting for external validation. The world fears what it cannot control, and it respects what it cannot defeat. The Igbo have shown time and again that suppression may slow them, but it cannot stop them. Their strength has transformed tragedy into testimony, setbacks into stepping stones, and exclusion into excellence. It is why, whether Nigeria remains united or divides, the foundation of Igbo progress remains the same: the power of a people who do not rely on chance, charity, or permission to succeed. Self-reliance gives them the resilience to endure hardship, the flexibility to adapt to change, and the courage to pursue autonomy if the moment demands it. It means that no matter the political climate, they are not lost. No matter the economic landscape, they are not paralyzed. No matter the social environment, they are not silenced. The strength of the Igbo is not tied to the approval of others, nor is it diminished by hostility. It is intrinsic, it is inherited, it is rehearsed, it is proven. And it will continue to define their future, because a people who can create opportunity out of adversity have already mastered the hardest part of nation building, the will to rise without being lifted.